Now, police in Wales are appealing for information after a doctor on board a Wales Air Ambulance helicopter was temporarily blinded by a laser pen. Investigators say the incident was potentially devastating. Well, let's get more information now from Grant Elgar. And Grant is the pilot who was flying the helicopter that night. Grant, it was on fireworks night, wasn't it? Bonfire night. Just talk us through what happened.
Yeah, it was. We dropped a patient off in Cardiff, and we were coming back to base here in Devon. And we knew it was firework night, so we kept it quite high, so we were safe from any fireworks. And we came over Swansea, and I just noticed a green glare coming in the side of the aircraft, which then informed the crew that we were getting lasered. And we had a couple of minutes to run, so we continued back quite quickly, actually.
And when you say we're getting lasered, this is something that you've experienced before, is it?
Yeah, I flew in the military, so you were quite used to what a laser attack is. We train on it quite often. We go through procedures that if we do get lasered, that we know how to deal with it. And literally, we just don't look at it. We look away from the actual source of the laser because it can be quite serious consequences from it.
But as a pilot, if it's forcing you to look in a different direction, that can potentially have, as has been said, devastating consequences, because you have a course that you're following, and you need to see where you're going and what you're doing.
And that's the danger of it, It's that because we're, especially for an air ambulance like we are, we're a solo pilot, and if the pilot gets a long exposure to these lasers, it can temporarily blind them. And it's our responsibility for that aircraft and for the passengers on board, for the safety of the crew. And if you temporarily blinded the pilot, it's going to be quite difficult for them to land.
So that night, you looked away from the light and you managed to keep control of the helicopter. But what about the doctor? What happened to them?
So we came back to Devon, and we put the aircraft away and everyone went home. First thing in the morning, the doctor called me. He said that he's been up all night with discomfort in the back of his eyes. He's very tender to bright light. And so he was feeling the effects, that a temporary laser can do to you. So, we informed him to go and see a specialist, which he did. And it came up and he was offline for 3 days then, purely with a discomfort at the back of the eyes, which could have been much worse.
Yeah. Now, where are these lasers coming from, and how frequently are you seeing these sort of things being shone at your helicopters?
We're quite fortunate. I've been flying this now for nearly 9 years, and we've not. That's the first incident I've had in 9 years of a laser attack. But you see it on social media, you see it in the news that it's quite frequent now that aircraft around the country are getting these attacks, especially when they come and they land into airports. And so we're here now to try and aware people of the dangers that it can be, that can cause, by incapacitating the pilot, and it can be very dangerous and potentially lethal.
You're talking about it being an attack. I mean, the assumption is that this is kids or young people messing around. They don't see it as an attack, do they? Or do you think that this is some kind of really someone who's actually going out of their way to do this? Or do you think it's just people just messing around, thinking that they're having a laugh and they're managing to shine it on a helicopter?
That's right. I think, at the end of the day, it's people having a bit of fun. They can buy these, laser pens or the commercial lasers on the internet nowadays. I think it's a bit of fun trying to, shine it on an aircraft. But our footage will show that, that laser for like 10 seconds was trying to track the aircraft as we were flying. We were doing nearly 140 miles an hour at 2,500 feet. So we were quite high, we were quite fast, but they were still tracking us as we was going along.
The police are trying to track down the culprits, but given that it was bonfire night, there was a load of stuff going up into the sky, bright things happening. It's searching for a needle in a haystack, isn't it?
It is, and that's a part of it. It's, we don't have the equipment on the aircraft to try and track these people with infrared, to try and find the source where it's coming from. We know generally the area where the source was coming from. But it's just people playing around. But it's just that we're trying to get to them, that the consequences that what they're doing is very dangerous, and it could, for the crew, especially for an air ambulance, we're there to provide a service for the people, especially of Wales, and we don't expect to get attacked by them.
Yeah. Do you think they should be banned, laser pens? Do you think they actually have any real point?
I know there's legislation going through at the government at the moment about laser pens and grading them, because there's a certain different types of pens you can get and the strength of the intensity of the laser itself. But like I said, you can easily get them on eBay or websites around the country. And we're not talking about the little pen you use in an office to do presentations with. We're talking about quite strong lasers, which can do lethal damage to any aircraft in the country.
Yeah. Grant Elgar, pilot from Wales Air Ambulance, good to talk to you. Thanks very much for telling us about what happened to you.